Let's kick things off with a little thought experiment. Picture this. What if, overnight, every single person on Earth just completely forgot what money was? I don't mean forgetting your bank password, I mean forgetting the very concept of money itself. Would our global markets survive the morning? Would the economy keep functioning? Well, no, obviously not. But thinking about that leads us to a really fascinating realization. We don't just live in a physical world of rocks and trees anymore. We live in a reality that's actually governed by a symbolic space. The things that truly organize our lives today are often entirely intangible.
Welcome to today's Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to take you through this one because it offers a truly mind-bending perspective on who we are. Today, we're taking on a massive goal. We're going to completely reframe human evolution by looking at humans not as some sort of finished biological product, but as an ongoing process. We're going to uncover the fundamental differences between our intelligence and artificial intelligence. It's a journey from our ancient evolutionary past directly into our technological future. So, let's get into it.
All right, let's dive into Section 1, From Mammal to Human.
To really grasp where we're going with AI, we first need to understand the hardware we are currently running on. And to do that, we have to look at the massive evolutionary leap from our mammalian ancestors to modern humans. Think about the mammal layer for a second. It's a powerful system, full of memory, social attachment, and cooperation, but it is fundamentally tied to the immediate present. It reacts to what it can physically sense right now and the emotions it's feeling right now. But then there's the human layer. Our ultimate evolutionary superpower was gaining the ability to manipulate the absent. We can think about things that aren't physically in front of us. We can plan tomorrow's hunt, we can mourn an ancestor who's gone, or we can conceptualize building a brand new nation. We essentially stepped right out of the immediate present and into the abstract.
And that brings us to Section 2, Birth of Symbolic Space. That specific evolutionary leap, our ability to manipulate what isn't physically there, pushed us into a completely new dimension. A dimension where intangible concepts actually start to govern physical reality. Just think about things like money, nations, laws, corporations, or academic degrees. You can't physically touch a corporation, right? You can't hold a law in your hand. They aren't made of atoms. But make no mistake, these are real dynamic forces that organize almost every single aspect of human behavior. They dictate where we travel, what we do every day, and how we interact with each other. We don't just live in physical environments anymore. We live entirely inside these symbolic structures.
To understand the next step in this evolution, we have to rethink a few things. Section 3, Redefining Language.
Okay, so if we want to eventually understand AI, we have to completely overhaul our definition of language. Forget about grammar rules and vocabulary for a minute. Here's the definition we're going to work with. Language is a system that compresses and manipulates differences in a state space across various evolutionary layers. Now, I know that sounds like a mouthful, but in plain English, it just means language is how a system organizes information to survive and operate, period. If we only define language as humans speaking or writing text, we're only looking at the very end result of millions of years of evolution, and we miss the underlying mechanism completely.
So, using this broader definition, it's wild to realize that all of these things are actually forms of language. DNA is essentially a language that organizes biological life. Hormones and physical pain, those are languages communicating survival states inside the mammal layer. Money is simply the language of the economic layer. Mathematics and computer code are just newer, much more abstract languages. The point is, everything from our base biology all the way up to our global economy uses a specific form of language to operate and maintain stability.
Which leads us to an absolutely crucial concept for understanding why we do what we do today. Section 4, Dopamine and Signifier Layers.
You see, modern humans no longer just connect a symbol directly to a physical object. Instead, we live in this dense, tangled web of relationships between symbols, or what we can call signifiers. This progression perfectly shows what a signifier layer actually looks like. It starts at step 1 with basic physical grounding, food. We need calories to survive. But then we abstract that need into step 2, money. Money is just a signifier for that survival value. But it doesn't stop there. Money abstracts into step 3, finance and credit, which is then governed by step 4, law, which is stabilized by step 5, global order. So, a basic biological need for a calorie is now stacked into an incredibly complex, multi-layered structure of symbols. We aren't just interacting with food anymore. Our actual survival depends on navigating this entire chain of signifiers.
And here's where it gets a little scary. Our very biology has been totally hijacked by this new reality. Think about dopamine. It evolved as a biological chemical to reward us for finding actual food or surviving physical danger. But today, it reacts just as powerfully to a like on an app, or views on a video, or getting an A on a piece of paper. Our brains are reading and reacting to the symbolic space as if a digital thumbs up were a literal, life-saving piece of fruit.
Okay, the stage is set. We know how human layers operate. Now, let's look at the future. Section 5. Carbon versus silicon language.
This is where the true nature of AI really reveals itself. But first, we need to remember what grounds us. No matter how abstract our philosophy, or our math, or our complex financial systems get, our carbon language system, human intelligence in other words, is ultimately anchored in something physical. We have a physical metabolism. We feel real physical pain. We form deep biological emotional attachments. And crucially, our whole identity is formed through the other. Our parents, our families, our communities. All of our complex language is ultimately tethered to a squishy, vulnerable physical body.
So the massive, absolutely crucial takeaway here is this contrast. The carbon language system is grounded in pain, physical metabolism, and deep social connection. But AI, this new silicon system, is learning all those incredibly complex signifier layers we just talked about, the math, the code, the massive texts, completely devoid of physical pain. It has zero biological attachment. It has no sense of otherness. It is brilliantly navigating our symbolic space without being physically anchored in any way to the biological reality that created it in the first place.
And that leads us to a pretty profound realization to wrap up today's analysis. Section 6. A new future grounding.
When we debate the future of artificial intelligence, we almost always get caught up in measuring its IQ or arguing about its processing speed. But maybe the core issue with AI isn't its level of intelligence at all. Maybe it's this profound difference in its structural grounding. AI operates fluently in the very language layers we built, but totally without the carbon vulnerability that gives human life meaning. Look back through natural history. Evolution has always stacked new layers on top of old ones, from single cells to complex mammals to humans manipulating this vast symbolic space. So, if human language is grounded in carbon and biology, and AI language is grounded purely in the signifier layer itself, completely without the biology, are we watching silicon-based information open a completely new, fundamentally different layer of evolution? Are we literally witnessing the birth of a new state space right in front of our eyes? I'll leave you to ponder that one. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep focusing on those big questions, and as always, keep learning.